Well, hello there again, friends and family. It's been a while since we've seen you in the little old country kitchen. And as always, you're going to see a pile of stuff set out here on the counter. And you might be wondering, what are we going to do? Well, tonight we're going to be making up a classic dish. A dish that was often served in my family for that special Sunday supper, or when company came over. And what would that be? Well, that would be beef tips and gravy. And what we're going to be using for the protein, the star of the show, is this here beef sirloin tip steak. Yep. Cost me $6.15 a pound if I bought it on regular price. But it was on Manager Special for $2 for this entire pack. Now primarily, I would use stew meat. Yep. Cheapest you can get other than round steak. And that would be what my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother would use. The cheapest cut of meat possible. And they just cook it longer to get tender. We're going to use the sirloin. So hey, you could call it steak tips and gravy if you want to. Now we got a little bit of all-purpose flour here. That's going to be to thicken our gravy, of course. And then we're going to have a little bit of ground black pepper, salt, some garlic powder, some onion powder to give us a lot more depth of flavor, some Worcestershire sauce, as well as the Thickening soy sauce. And to keep it beefy, we're going to be using 2 to 3, depending on how much liquid we put in, of these beef bouillon cubes. Remember, it's 1 beef bouillon cube to 1 cup, 8 ounces of water. And then, just to put it over the top, we're going to be using some sour cream. And of course, we're going to have an onion. And we're going to be also adding some mushrooms, pieces and stems. But if you got fresh, all the more better. I don't. So we'll be using this 8-ounce can. We'll be using about 4 ounces, more or less. Now, you might wonder, right now, what's sweet peas and whole kernel corn about? Those are my sides for tonight. And then, of course, we got some extra virgin olive oil to lubricate up the pan. And I mean, I'm sure you all have had this many times. Maybe at your home, at a diner or restaurant. And the classic ways to eat it is, of course, over rice. Or if you really want to be fancy, be over some of them egg noodles. But how we had it most of the time, not that we didn't have it over rice or egg noodles, we'd have it over mashed taters. Yeah. And what I'm going to be doing, yep, not fresh, I'm going to be using up some of these here buttery homestyle mashed potatoes, Idahoan, out of my pantry. I'm trying to work that pandemic pantry down, if you know what I mean. So this is everything we need, other than a cutting board, a knife, of course, a large frying pan, and a bowl. Yeah. So, I got to set up to get dicing the onion and dicing up this steak. Yeah, we talking fancy here, aren't we? And y'all just pull up a chair and grab a cold drink and come along with me. If you want to help, I'll take the help, because I can't get Grace to do anything. She ain't got no thumbs. Now, of course, first thing we got to prep is our onion. We're going to cut off the root end. Not too much. We're going to cut off the top. Not too much. Oh, let me show you something about onions. You see that right there? Yep, it's already went bad. I've encountered this many times in buying onions from the store. Yeah, so we're going to have to get another one, okay? So we're going to try another onion. Let's hope this one's better. Yep, it's already looking better. Let me know in the comments below the video if you've been running into that problem where your onion is not looking too healthy when you cut it open. I know the onions I've been buying, especially since, you know, the pandemic, have not been very good quality. And we're saving all this stuff we're getting off here, you know, for the compost pile. We'll just give it a quick peel right there. And right here. We're not taking too much off. We're only taking off the brown. We don't waste any of our onion. And then we're just going to give it a rough chop. Yeah. I'm going to cut it in some slices. Just like this. You can do it any way you want to. It's up to you. If you want to use one of them hacks where they show you doing that fancy thing where you chop it all down and everything, that's fine. Basically, I'm cutting it into thirds. You know, about that size. We'll just rake that over on the paper plate and continue on. Don't take long. Now you can use one of them. You can use a food processor. You can use one of those little gadgets. Chop it all up. But with me, no. All I gotta wash now is my cutting board and my knife, which I would have had to got out if I was using all that fancy stuff. And there you have it. Just that simple. The onions are ready to go in the pan. Now we gotta get to that steak, okay? So now we're ready to get the steak. And it's rather large. So what I'm gonna do, I got my bowl. As I cut it up, I'm gonna put it in the bowl. Then later I got the bowl to make up my flour slurry for the gravy. So I'm just gonna take this and I'm gonna cut it where it's just a little more manageable. Okay, just like that. Now you wanna make sure, and you can cut it up in pieces you want, but you do want to cut across the grain. Yep, you have to look that up. See just how you can tell. I know from just looking at it. Okay? And I got cut there. And then I'm going to spin that around. Now, this is something else. Depending on how much money we had back when I was growing up, you could sort of tell by how small Mama cut it up to be. Or Grandma, or what have you. Yep, the poorer we were, and the more people to feed, the beef got cut up a lot smaller. You know, that's not so much an issue now. As you can see, there's my pieces. You know, maybe about a ½ inch. Of course, the steak wasn't, but maybe 3/8 of an inch in thickness. And I knew that, so I knew this wouldn't really grill very well. We'll just drop it in that bowl. Just another piece. And repeat. It's just that easy. You don't got to be precise, you know. But like I say, if you're like me and you're a senior trying to get by on as little as you can and still eat tasty, yeah, stretch your food. And that was what was good about the classic beef tips, whether it be beef tips and rice or beef tips and noodles or beef tips and potatoes. It went a long way. Here's our last piece right here. Do the same thing, cutting across the grain. And the reason you cut across the grain instead of with the grain is that cuts the muscle fibers, and it'll be a lot more tender in the finished dish. In other words, it won't be so chewy. Okay? Make sure you have a sharp knife. This one's getting just about to the point of needing some sharpening. As I call it, some love. It's not quite there. And there you have it. That whole big sirloin steak is all cut up, ready to feed probably, if I had to guess, that steak with what I'm making would feed 4 to 6 easily, maybe 8, depending on how much gravy and everything you had and what you were eating it over. Well, we got the pan heating up, and I always do that. Doesn't matter what kind, but it's especially crucial if you're using cast iron. And we're using a cast aluminum pan right now. We're gonna put a, tablespoon or 2 of olive oil, olive love in the pan to get her all happy and get her ready to cook, okay? Now once your pan gets nice and toasty, and we're cooking on medium heat, not medium low or medium high, just medium. And we're going to introduce, our chopped up beef tips. Did you hear that? Can you see that sizzle? Oh yeah. See, that's what you want. You want to be able to hear when that meat hits the pan, something's happening. You ain't hearing it, whether it's meat, veggies, what have you, it ain't happening. Ooh, yeah, baby. And if you're one of those that says, well, I make my beef tips and gravy in a crock pot, well, God bless you. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Lord knows I have. But if you skip the step of browning, you're skipping a whole level of flavor. Yeah. One, that, my mother, she didn't much care. She'd dump that raw beef right in a crock pot, and off she'd go. And it was still yummy. But with me, we're going to go ahead and make sure we give it a little bit of brown. So we got our beef all in there, browned up nicely. Now we're going to have to get those onions, okay? Now there's no magic time how long you brown your beef. You can put a little color on it or a whole lot. Now I'm not going to get so anal. I got to turn over every piece to get even browning. No. A little bit of browning goes a whole long way in making this yummy. Yes, it does. You just sort of smack it around, play with your meat. You know, I've told you all that many times. Play with your meat. You want to flip it over? Get that spatula in there, flip it over. Look at that. We'll flip it over just for those connoisseurs that can't have it any other way. Next, we're going to put in them onions, which we just happen to have right here. We're going to plop them off in there. Ooh, and immediately, they're going to start flavoring that beef. Yep, they are. Don't worry about beating them to death to get them to all separate right away. They'll separate soon enough, all on their own. You know, but I can't help myself. You know, I got to beat them a little bit into submission. Okay. Of course, they were rather chilly because we had them sitting in the fridge. Ooh, all that meat flavor. That level of goodness from that olive oil already starting to permeate that beef. But we can't stop here. See, the flavor don't stop with just the onion. No, it don't. But we're going to let that brown up a little bit while y'all watch it. And then we're going to add the last thing before we start seasoning it all. Getting it just right. Okay? Now, as you can see, there's a lot of moisture coming out of that meat and those onions. Yep. And we're cooking that moisture out so we can get some more of that browning going on. But there's going to be a lot more as soon as we add our mushrooms. We're just going to take that 8-ounce can and we're going to drop in about half a can. I love mushrooms. And if you haven't looked up the benefits of mushrooms and what they'll do for you, then you don't know. If you never put mushrooms in your beef tips, maybe you want to. That is, if you like mushrooms. So it's sitting there all percolating, getting all happy together, all those flavors, you know, the onion, mushrooms coming together with all those beef juices. Now is when we need to do some seasoning. We're going to be seasoning this mixture before we start adding the gravy. You know, making the gravy. So the first thing we're going to give it to really blast the flavor is some garlic powder. Yep. And we're going to use 1 teaspoon. Now, if you know about garlic powder, you'll know every 1/8 of a teaspoon is 1 clove. So this is basically 8 cloves of garlic. If you ain't fond of garlic, you don't put that much in there. But understand, it's going to be watered down in the gravy. And even though we got onions in it, we're going to put some onion powder. The thing you need to know about dehydrated powdered onion, oh yeah, it's way more robust, a little deeper flavor. Yep, so we're going to put a teaspoon of that in there. Like I say, this may seem a lot for this meat and mushrooms, but we ain't got the water in there or the bouillon. Next up, I love my black pepper. Pure ground it is. And don't want to put too much. But I'm going to put in a half teaspoon. Give it a little bit of that black pepper bite. Yeah, buddy. Can you see those flavor levels building now? Boy, I hope you can. But don't be scared. You know, if you want to use less at this stage, and then, you know, add your water, bouillon, water it all down, you can. That's the magic of cooking. You don't got to be walking off the plank into the abyss. Woo! Those onions are softening up. Beef is cooking up. We're getting close. Finishing it off. Now, because of what else I'm going to be doing, I'm just going to dazzle it with a little bit of salt. Not a lot. That's why I use the shaker. Yep. Salt's a flavor enhancer. Yeah, buddy. And you know, if you use it in moderation and that, it won't kill you. I mean, in all truth, it's not our home cooking that gets us with the salt, unless you're like my mama was. She was heavy-handed with the salt. But most people aren't. It's that processed food that contains more salt than life which God hasn't seen that gets you. Looking good. I can't tell you how much it smells so good. But to kick that flavor up to a whole different level, this is when the Worcestershire sauce comes in. Yes, it does. We're going to drop in 2 tablespoons. Here again, we're making gravy. Okay? With this. So don't get scared. And then next up to bat, we're going to be using the key command, soy sauce. About 1 tablespoon. Okay? Now there's where the salt's at, in the soy sauce. There we go. That's going to give that meat and the resulting gravy its flavor. Ooh, I can tell you, if you could smell this right now, you'd be wanting to marry me. Just smell will make you happy. Just watch your meat and onions. When they get browned enough for your liking, you know, it'll be time to add the liquid. Now to add the bouillon cubes. And, you know, as luck would have it, I wasn't prepared. I didn't have them pre-opened up. Nope, I didn't. So, we are watching. We're going to go ahead, because that's going to add also some more salt. For whatever reason, bouillon cubes are real salty. Well, I didn't put a whole lot of salt in there. With the soy sauce and everything. I knew we're adding way more. And if salt's a thing in your life, you know, don't get the shaker out. Just go with the cubes. So we got 3 cubes in there. Let me tell you, that's going to make it so beefy. Woo, you're going to have to hold on to your jaws. Yes, it is. The only thing left to do before we let her simmer on down, you know, simmer on down. You might remember that from the 80s. Simmer down now. Is add some water. 3 bouillon cubes, 3 cups of water. We're just going to drop them on in there. There's the first one. Okay, I'll be back. Here's the second. For all of y'all that want to count. And here's the third. You can see right now, there's going to be plenty of gravy. I'm going to tell you what, just mushrooms, onions, and gravy, or potatoes, rice, or noodles, I'm happy. You know, because that's what always happens. You get to eating this, and the beef gets slim, but you still got gravy left over. I'm telling you, this gravy is jam up. So the only thing we're going to do now is let this come to a low and slow simmer. So that there sirloin becomes ever so tender. We ain't even gonna have to chew it hardly. And that's what we're after. Okay? So y'all watch this. Make sure it don't burn or boil over. Okay? Now, since I'm using sirloin steak, I've been letting this simmer for about an hour. And I know, based on past experience, that's going to give it close to what I want. But if you were using stew meat, which is from all parts of the cow, because it's the trimmings, yeah, you might want to take a taste of your beef, see if it's as tender as you want it. Because of the high demand for stew meat, which is the cheapest of all cuts of beef, and that they tend to use cuts and add, here again, depending on demand, more of the round, which is your back. Think of it as the hip, you know, the top round, the bottom round. Yep, which is very lean, very tough, and very chewy. So, after an hour, go ahead and grab you out a piece of that beef, you know, and chew it. And see if it's as tender as you want. If not, keep on letting it cook down. And we've been letting this cook on a low and slow simmer. Not a boil. Because if you're using round, which primarily my family would have because it was so dirt cheap, or stew meat, you know, some of those cuts would have been nice and tender, you know, cubes. Others would have been awful chewy. Yeah. So, after an hour, check your beef. If it's not where you like, keep it simmering, low and slow. But for me, we're close enough. So, I made up a slurry, flour slurry, of 3 tablespoons of flour, and I'm using all-purpose. You could use just regular flour, all-purpose. At this point, it don't matter. We're just gonna, after we whisked it all fine, so we wouldn't have lumps, we're just gonna pour it in nice and slow, right there. And we're just gonna mix it around with our whisk. See, this is what's gonna thicken that gravy. And by doing this, you know, you could do this when you make your beef, you know, like a roux, and it wouldn't clump all up, give you those little white pieces in it. But this is the way Mom always did it, Grandma and great-grandma. And you're just gonna let it cook. And this is where you go wrong when you add flour. You gotta let it cook. You don't want to be tasting raw flour in your gravy. No, you don't. And you can see right now, There ain't no lumps in my gravy. There never is. We're going to let that continue to cook. And we're going to get our taters ready. Okay? So it's going to keep simmering. And making some gravy goodness. Okay? Now you got to be simmering, low boil, to make this thicken up. Just saying. Too low and slow, you don't get gravy. But you all keep watching it. Making sure it don't burn. We'll get this lid back on. We'll let her keep going. I already know that beef is getting close to where I like it after an hour. But if I let it go, say, a whole another hour, it won't matter. It'll just get all the more tender. See what I'm saying? Well, we added our flour and letting it cook off. So we're going to, we've added our flour, we let it cook off. Thicken up our gravy. Yep. Now we're ready to cut the heat. Totally take it off. Now, if you know anything about gravy, it gets thicker as it cools. Yep. We got our potatoes all done. That's what we're going to be eating it on top of. Right there. And now I got to get my other two sides ready. The green peas and the corn, which are going to be just heated up in the good old nuclear oven, the microwave. So let me get that going. And we'll be back and we'll start plating this up. Okay? You watch this. Make sure nothing happens to it. Okay? Okay, nothing more to do. Just get her plated up, right? So, while we're nuking our other side, we're going to get those creamy mashed taters out, from the fine folks at Idahoan. We're just going to put some nice serving right there. Look at that. Yep. Then we got the star of the show. You know it. We got the beef tips, gravy, mushrooms and everything. Oh yeah. We're just going to ladle that on top. Well, not ladle. And this is a way to stretch things. You might be saying, I can't believe you bought steak, Mr. Tom. Well, Mr. Tom will eat really fine for many a meal off of that piece of steak. Right there. You look at that. Looks delicious, doesn't it? And I can already tell you, it actually does. So, what goes better with potatoes, beef tips, mushrooms, and gravy? Oh, of course, peas. Gotta have peas if you're gonna have potatoes, in my mind. So here's the peas from the fine folks of Great Value. Piping hot they are. We're just going to put some of those on there. Full of protein, fiber. You don't get no better than that. No, you don't. So we got them. Next up is our sweet kernel corn. Finally, the last thing we got left is our sweet corn, whole kernel. Now if you want cream style, that'd be all okay. We'll put a little bit of that on the plate, and looky there. Look at that. If that ain't a meal fit for a king, or even a queen, or a little old country engineer, I don't know what is. So the only thing left is to do a taste test, right? So y'all, the only thing left is a taste test. I always do one, so you'll know I actually eat what we cook. And I'll tell you straight up, whether it's yummy or not. I'm not proud. Doesn't mean I won't eat it, okay? But I want you to look at that goodness right there. Some beef, some onion, some mushroom, and some creamy mash. Ooh, my. This will make you want to come home to mama. But let's try it out and see it's everything that I want it to be. Whoa. Oh. Let me tell you, that sirloin steak, after cooking basically for an hour and a half, it's just about to fall apart. But that's the key here. It all depends on what you use in your beef tips. If you're using stew meat, which is a menagerie of all the trimmings off the beef, some of those trimmings will be less chewy and more tender. Others will be more chewy and tender. That's why I tell you, chomp on your beef after you cooked it a while. Now, if you're using the cheapest cut of meat, round steak, whether it be top round, bottom round, rump roast, that's going to take a while longer. It gets back to test your meat. Oh, the seasonings were spot on. Now, if you want to make it a little bit more spicy, you can put some Slap Your Mama on, or some of that there Tony Chachere's, or even go far simpler and put some red pepper flakes. Either way, it's going to be delicious. And I hope you'll try it out. And maybe in the comments below the video, you'll tell me how you make your beef tips and gravy, and what's your preferred way of eating it. Do you eat it over potatoes, like I grew up doing? Except on occasion, we did have it over rice. When we really wanted to be fancy and company, we had it over noodles. Which you may all do. Or you might do none of it. Because I'm going to tell you what another secret is. There were hard times, so hard, great-grandma would just have it over sliced white bread. But it was still all the more yummy. So until Gracie, the kitty crew, Spooky, Speedy, Cleo, Mr. Gray, sometimes Heathcliff. See y'all on that next video. Y'all take care. Stay safe. May God bless you as you bless those in your life. Man, that did turn out good. Of course, I knew it would. And I'm hungry. It's getting late. The sun has done set. This didn't have onions in it. Grace would be loving it. Gotta remember to put some aside for her. Oh, later all.